Whatever you do, if you see the God residing actually inside every person and animal and thing that you're around, you see God in everything, including a dog, a tree, people. You see it everywhere.
Turn it on.
What I remember from it was so much fun. Being with Bill was that we started our own little conference within the conference, and we had a whole bunch of people sitting.
Happened twice that day. I ended up with a group of about 20, and then I had a group of about, I don't know, whatever it was in the hallway. And it was like, I was waiting for the authorities to come and say, please, you're never getting to be here again, because I had more around me than they had in the.
And right now, my camera's switching really quickly back and forth. So,
Then I'll have to
not
keep
sure.
my.
Yeah, exactly. You got round two. Let me take this thing off. This is Joel at Reset Media. I'm here with Reverend Bill Mcdonald. I met Reverend Bill Mcdonald at Sands Conference, and it just so happened that day that I was wearing a top shirt was I had bought in Vietnam, and he's a Vietnam vet, and I had a black screen behind me, and we started joking around. And shortly after that, he got a chair and he sat down, and we created a sort of our own like conference within the conference, and it was oh, what's going on? Are you getting feedback?
Getting double from you.
You're getting double feedback?
Yeah, I'm hearing it again as soon as you finish.
I think we got it now. All right, we're back with Reverend Bill, our third iteration here. So Reverend Bill, I guess we'll start out by I read through your book. It was quite a while ago. COVID had hit, and we didn't have a chance to get together for our interview. But we're here now, and maybe you can present to the audience the book you wrote, or I mean, really, you've written more than one. So I'll let you let everyone know if they want to know more about your life and who you are.
Well, it's interesting. We started this conversation. It seems like about a decade ago, trying to connect, and then we finally get the right dates for this interview, and then it was fighting for the times, and then it was equipment malfunction problems, and then the audio wasn't working. Nobody could hear me, which would have been probably your best broadcast. There he is, saying nothing, just moving his lips. So, Joel, I've written at least 6 books with my author on, title on it, but I probably helped 5 dozen other people, write their books behind the scenes, help them out. And I'm featured in several dozen books where people take my stories and they put them in their books, like not the chicken soup of the souls, but books like that, a combination of stories, or somebody adds it to a spiritual book they've written. And I probably did 150 forwards for books, bestsellers, and everything else. And uh, anyway, I write books, and the one that you read, I believe you read "The Alchemy of a Warrior's Heart," which was dealing with a decade-long part of my life where I went back to Vietnam in 2002, where I went to uh, India for the first time, and then I went back subsequent journeys and met holy men and very spiritual beings and some real sacred people, and had an experience of a lifetime. Each time I went over, it was totally different. And then in the book you read, I talked about my last 2 near-death experiences. Incidentally, I talked about time travel. I talked about manifesting healing and clairvoyance, and I talked about all kinds of supernatural things. And I talked about my open heart surgery, and then being in two places at once during that surgery, being in India and then also being in the hospital uh, after I finished my surgery. So yeah, as a background, my first first book was Spiritual Warrior's Journey, and then years later, about 10 years later, I rewrote it, added some new chapters, took out some, refreshed it, and gave a new product, and it was called Warrior. Uh, was Sacred Journey, Warrior, Spiritual Journey. All right, I can't even keep track of the book. And then I wrote some poetry books and wrote some other books. One of my poetry books, believe it or not, that nobody's into poetry. I can tell you that right now. Uh, I wrote a poetry book in 2003, and it got Poetry Book of the Year by this publishers organization, and I got a $25,000 publishing prize and everything. So that was no small feat, I guess. But it didn't promote sales. Nobody buys poetry. People want action, and so I consider my last two nonfiction books, Warrior, A Spiritual Odyssey, and Alchemy of a Warrior's Soul, of a Warrior's Heart. Those I would consider, and you can correct me, you read the book, but some people say it's like Indiana Jones of the spiritual world type thing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're really, I mean, in fact, in the in the book about going back to India, I actually talk about on my first trip out in the desert where we were taken by our driver against our will to see this oasis, and it had a temple there. And we go inside. I met this guy, and he claimed I was his brother, and I'd been there before, and it was my temple, and I could stay there as long as I wanted. And he bound down to me and all this stuff. Interesting. But he took me around the temple on a private tour, and he touched this wall, and just like Indiana Jones, the wall opened. Just kind of this big block wall kind of goes, opens up, and went inside this chamber. And then there was a secret staircase in there that went to the roof. It was really cool. So yeah, so Indiana Jones, yeah, I think in some ways it kind of applies.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed the reading. And when I first spoke with you, what was impressive to me, or was impressed upon me, was sort of the irony that for me is the Reverend Bill Mcdonald, in that there's a very practical side to you, almost an irreverent side to you. And yet, as I understand your experiences, which I will say they are hard to swallow, and so some of the interactions I have with people are like, that can't be real. I'm like, actually, he's a very practical guy. He comes across as someone who's essentially a truthful individual. And so then that pulled me in, because my intuition was going against my rationale, but the book is a fun read, and I recommend it to anybody out there. Like, I do recommend you pick up Bill's book. And since I've known you, you've had these extraordinary happenings, and yet, maybe you can describe for us sort of like how you
Well,
feel.
let's talk about last 2, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Uh, Typical. I'm talking to this doctor friend of mine, a young doctor. He's at UCLA practicing medicine, and we're talking, and I'm laying on a bed in the dark, so I'm just on the phone with them audio, and my windows, the curtains are open, so I can see a little bit of light outside. And all of a sudden, there's something between the window and me, right? And I'm looking up from my pillow, and I'm looking at a large being cloaked in. At the time, I could only think of, was weird because I told him, and I'm talking to him on the phone very calmly, just like this. I said, just a minute, Doc. I said, it looks like I got some kind of entity standing here in front of me. It's practically touching my knee. It's right here, next to me. He goes, what is it? Tell me what it is. I'm just like, well, it's, I don't know. I said, the energy reminds me of the Grim Reaper, and I don't even believe in the Grim Reaper, but something about death. Somebody's either died or is dying, or somebody's trying to get me a message from the other side. And I said, but they're not coming to take me. That's all I care about. They're not coming for me. And I just go on the conversation. Oh, I'll get back to that. And I said, it's just an entity. It's just the thing there. It was in dark robes, kind of like Darth Vader, with dark robes and a hood and everything. And but it was there for the entire hour-long conversation was driving him, like, what? And I'm just trying to have a conversation with him because I don't get excited. These things happen. It's like, okay, it's a dead person or something, big deal, right? So I didn't know why when I hung up on him, and I told him, I said, yeah, when I hang up, I'm just going to go to bed. I'm not turning on the lights, looking under the bed. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm just going to close my eyes and go to bed. He says, no, you got something there. And I said, yeah, well, you know what? They got to do a little bit more to get my attention because I'm busy. They don't, whatever they need. But I felt this energy had a need. It was a lonely energy and it was looking for a blessing or something on the other side. It was somebody trying to go forward. So the next morning, I find out that my friend died, a Vietnam veteran friend, younger than me. He died at 5:30 in the morning. This conversation was, that couldn't have been him because I thought, well, nah, that's not him. People say, no, it's not him. And then about 3, 4 days later, I find out that somebody I knew on Facebook that used to contact me for help all the time, and I was one of the few people in the world that would listen to her. She passed away in a hospital in Istanbul, Turkey, and all alone. And somebody went on a nurse or somebody went on the Facebook and said he's passed away. That's how I found out. But it was I heard from him when he was sick and going into the hospital about a week or two before, and and he sent a message out to everybody. I think it looked like it was a personal message, but it wasn't. You could tell it was mass sent to all his Facebook friends. But apparently, I was the only one responded back and sent him love and prayers. Uh, I say he. It was somebody that transitioned. So I say he, she. So forgive me on that. California, everybody gets upset. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right.
So,
Right.
but he passed away. She passed away, very lonely, very upset. When she transitioned her gender, it ended up, there's divorce. A kid doesn't talk to her, a grown kid wasn't talking to her, family wasn't talking to her, brother wasn't talking to her. Everybody disowned her, and she went overseas and spent, I don't know how many years overseas, and was just going from one country to the next country and trying to make friends. And apparently, there's a lot of prejudice around the world. So anyway, she was very, very lonely. So when I had that visitation, when I found out about her passing, then I knew, okay, then I did a little ceremony, a little a prayers for transition for the other kind, transition from the earth plane to wherever she was going to go, and which is a whole big conversation on that. But so that was 3 weeks ago, and it happened in this room I'm in right now. I don't have a brick. This is not a brick wall behind me. Trust me. Anyway,
Is a
but
backdrop. Yeah.
backdrop. I'm actually got a closet behind me, and I'm moving and changing rooms. Anyway, bottom line is this: I get visits from supernatural beings. I get visits from the other side from just regular people. Um, I get audio things happening, through sounds and voices. I get things through visions. I get things from. This is going to sound funny, but there's also another sense that a lot of people don't talk about, and that's people smell perfume or cigars of somebody or the smell of somebody's cologne, or in other words, there's also a ability to smell aromas and fragrances and odors from the other side, like, and that's true. Like if you have your grandmother visiting you and she wears a certain, like white shoulder uh, perfume, you'd smell that and you'd know that she was present when there's no one else around. And you're outside, and it's like, no, you don't smell perfume. So those kind of things. But I've also had time travel, which we could talk about a little bit. I've had being in two places at the same time, actually with a physical body and mind someplace else. Uh, I've had astral travel where my wife and others have seen me and actually recall it, and I recall having a conversation with them, which is kind of odd. usually astral travel is a solo voyage. You go out, nobody sees you, nobody, here I am, nothing. But I've had some where people know I'm there, and they react. Usually, the reaction is fear, which shuts everything down and closes it off.
Right.
Fear is the pulling of the energy back of any experience. So, like I was trying to tell my doctor friend on the phone, I said, fear kills any kind of like experience, and most people are already afraid of making any kind of contact or connecting with something in that realm. Although they do it or try to do it on drugs, mushrooms, LSD, ayahuasca, and all that kind of stuff. But you don't need drugs. And having these experiences with drugs, that's the drug talking. It's not the same thing. Having experiences that you haven't artificially induced are totally different. And I say that speaking people, well, have you ever? No, I haven't tried the drugs. I don't do drugs, never will. But to me, trying to induce an experience is not seeking God, that's seeking an experience. And my life is about seeking love, which is all about seeking God. So the experience is incidental, that's a byproduct. It's collateral, I say collateral damage in some world, but I call it collateral blessings or collateral grace. But you don't meditate, you don't pray, you don't live a great life just to produce supernatural events. And you don't spend your time, after. I learned this lesson. I was in India and this holy man is talking to me. And I've heard similar stories, but maybe they all tell the same stories in India. I don't know. But this guy was telling me, he says, this guru, this great guru, and it's some guy in the 1940s or 50s or something. And he had one of his students, and his student was young and came to him, and he wanted to learn how to teleport, go from one place to the other and all that stuff. And so this guru wasn't teaching him that. So he left, went to the Himalayan mountains, lived in a cave for 50 years, comes back, or maybe it was 40 years. So he comes back and he's an old man, and this old guy that was his guru is practically dead, right? I mean, he's really ancient. And he goes to the guru and he says, hey, I spent 50 years in a cave, and I sit in the cave and I could go from that cave to Delhi. Boom, just like that. There I was. And the guru looks at me and says, you spent 50 years doing something you could have went down and bought a bus ticket for? I mean, come on. What'd you get from that, right? Anybody can get a bus ticket and go from there to there, right? So that's kind of the way I feel about experience. If that was told to me, it was kind of like the guy looking him in the eye saying, that's not the path. It's an inner thing. And everything you do, I don't care if it's being around your grandchildren, or in your case, being around children, being around others, servicing people, doing things, whatever you do, if you see the God residing actually inside every person and animal and thing that you're around, you see God in everything, including a dog, a tree, people. You see it everywhere. So if you go out in the world and see God in everything and as everybody, it changes how you treat people. Because even that mean, nasty person out there, there's a God in them. You don't approve of or like or love the actions of some people. But in other words, hate, as they say in the Christian, whatever you do, if you see the God residing actually inside every person and animal and thing that you're around, you see God in everything, including a dog, a tree, people. You see it everywhere. That everything you're looking for is within.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question for everyone out there. Most of my my audience is like a lot of hyper rational people, and I'm open a lot to new ideas and new experiences. And I'm sure everyone's had strange coincidences in their lives. We're taught that these things aren't, we don't allow ourselves to explore it, or, you know, like you said, we can often be afraid, but I'm open to listening and learning. And there's a lot of practicality to what you just said about seeing God in everything. I'm just trying to understand why you, as opposed to other people, you know, that you've throughout your life. Were you born with this, or, you know?
Yeah, here's all right. I asked myself the same thing when I was watching Roger Maris as a kid hit home runs. I said, how can he and Mickey Mantle hit 60 home runs? And how come I can't, right? And Johnny Cash could sing, you know, and the Rolling Stones are still going. So everybody's got a talent. Call it, call what I have spiritual DNA. If you look at my family, my mother was psychic, my brother's psychic, my sisters were pretty much gifted. Six, five, six, 7 generations back into Italy and to Ireland, everybody was pretty much psychic. Uh, but I think when you come into this world, you bring these talents like Mozart. He's writing music and composing music at 5 years old. Come on, hey, you learned that in the womb. I mean, what was going on, right? Uh, and Einstein come in pretty darn smart, and somebody else, Thomas Edison's got these crazy ideas. So it's what you accomplish and what you've learned someplace else before you got here. You call it heaven, you could call it previous lives, you could call it anything you want, but it's not a roll of the dice. And so the body you have, the eye color, the hair, for those that have hair, uh, all these traits that you have for what you're susceptible to diseases or allergies or whatever, everything you inherited through a whole string of DNA. You're given that family because your background lines up and is sympathetic or empathetic with the background of that family. So it's not unusual that somebody that's athletic would be born into a family where you can think of a lot of examples. Okay, the Golden State Warriors, right? You got a player on there, he's just shooting it, right? And his brother plays for Philadelphia, and their father played for the 76ers. Hey, whoa, 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 whoa. It's the whole family plays basketball, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with baseball players, the Alou brothers, that's before your time.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
your brothers. And
Did,
my father was playing with the DiMaggio brothers in high
yeah.
school in the Bay Area. And anyway, my father was All-American catcher on baseball team for high school, and was actually drafted by the the old Boston Braves, and then he got drafted into the war, and then never. He got wounded, and he never came back and played. I mean, you can't be gone 4 or 5 years and come back and play. So there was a talent there in baseball, which I'd never tried out. I only played one organized baseball weekend in my entire life when I was in my 40s. Never played little league, nothing. Never owned a bat or a glove, and so I was throwing something around. I said, well, anybody can play baseball. And where I work at, they organized a league. All these post offices had a baseball team or softball team, to be more exact. And I said, well, I could play. So I played catcher, and everybody laughed at me. I was the old guy. Everybody was young. Tournament was over, and guess who got MVP? Me. First time I ever played baseball in my life, 40 something years old. So there's a DNA level. And I'm telling you the same thing with spiritual. You could call it a gift. And I'm saying no gift is given without work. That's like saying Michael Jordan is a gifted athlete. No, he worked for it all at some place, some level. All these guys did. So,
Are you suggesting that so when you figured out that there's something different about you, something extraordinary in regards to ESP, or have not some of these ways of sensing reality or being transported other places, at that point you're saying that you started to hone it or work on it or try and develop it?
Well, no, none of the above.
All right.
I'm going to cut because I'm throwing it out to everybody else. You have to. Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't always start off with big biceps, right? He had to go to the gym. Now, let's say he never mastered the art this lifetime, but the next lifetime he came in and he was still trying to become Mr. America, Mr. Universe. He might be prone to go into that and be greatly successful. At some point in time of my spiritual journey through the cosmos or through the eons or whatever, someplace along the line, these things were developed. I'm telling you, when people start off their spiritual journey, their spiritual search, a lot of them are searching for the experiences. It seems to be a natural progression. You start off, they learn how to meditate, they learn how to do this, then they want to astral travel. And then what's the big thing now? They all want to do automatic writing, they all want to channel, they all want to be a medium for ghosts and all that stuff. Well, you know what? Yeah, come on. It's a sidetrack, it's a detour. For some people, it's real. That's another whole issue. For some people, it's just delusion. And I've been around enough to realize that a lot of people that are doing these things are delusional. There are some real people in there too, and there's some real people in there that get caught up in it and they forget what the pursuit was. The pursuit was about finding and spending time with God. And that's not spending time with God. That's not finding God. That's not spreading love. That's not being love. It's not accomplishing anything except it's it's a want, it's a thing. It's like you're seeking fame, fortune, money, health. You want powers, you want to be able to walk through a wall, you want to be able to read minds. All these things are just things. You got to wake up one day and just say, I want God. End of story.
Got a question for you in regards to that. Well, first of all, you believe in reincarnation, correct? Because that's your.
All right. All right. That's a big question.
I just I had
No,
to
no,
throw that out
no,
there
no.
because you
I'm
started talking about.
gonna turn that on its head.
Uh,
I don't believe in incarnation, let alone reincarnation. That would imply that I believe in life and death and afterlife and something in between, right? So, yes, if you have a body, you have an ego. If you have an ego and you have a body, you're buying into this materialistic world, which means you suffer pain, right? You have pleasure, displeasure, all these things, you heat, cold. When you buy into having a body, meaning you have an ego, you have an I-ness. When I say ego, I'm not saying egotistical. I mean you believe you are you. You have an I-ness. Everybody that has an I-ness will believe in incarnation. They believe they were born. Therefore, they believe they die, and they believe they go to heaven, and they believe they reincarnate. I'm telling you, none of that's true. But being a human with an I-ness, I'm a prisoner of this just like you are. So it's until you can break out of that box that separates you from your divineness, your oneness. Once you break down the I and you are one, then there is no more I or no more you or me. It's just one. And then all the rest of this is gone. There is no life is not real. And that's hard to say to somebody who's just lost a child or they're sick and they're in pain or whatever else. People are suffering. I give granted. In this material world, pain is real. But I'm telling you, this material world isn't real. And having somebody in pain, and you can't tell somebody that's in pain because every part of them owns it. And as long as I have an I-ness, I got a body and I feel pain too. And I can theoretically say these things. But until you're in a no mind state, no mind. Or some say, yeah, Billy's out of his mind. Is that the same thing? I don't know. But in a no mind state, then you can understand these things. But if you're thinking through a brain and through the human being and through this I-ness and through the ego, you can only theorize these things like, what is God? Everybody has a different image. Well, God is this great being, and God's the Father, God's the, but you know what? There is nothing that is not God.
Mm.
So any answer anybody gives is okay. It's like people, like, oh, my past life, I was Moses, and I was Jesus, and I was, you know, who cares? In the real, in the real, since we're all one, everybody was Moses because there's only one God, right? So God's dreaming a life of Moses, then we're all there. So in the truth is, yeah, okay. In this dream world, you might have been somebody else, but in the essence, the real truth is there's only one. So you're everybody. And that's what people don't get. So it's like,
People have a lot of,
let me go back to the original question. Your
yeah,
original question was, did I go after this? And I'm telling you,
yeah.
through, I believe, lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, and according to the readings I've had, uh, you know, Indian astrology, Vedic astrology, uh, naughty palm readings, tarot card readings, uh, several other people doing readings. And I've had readings done by a lot of people. I've never paid for any of them, that just go do them. And every one of them says the same thing. It's every lifetime I've lived, I've left. And this is what they tell me, whether you believe it or not. Whether I believe it or not is
Mm.
it matters not to me, because I don't know if I want to. I've always been told that I've left life in a rainbow body. When the end of my life, and I leave in a rainbow, and that's how I've left. These readers have read it. They said every life they could go back to see that I've ended every life the same, and left this is as this in rainbow bodied person. I just leave, and that I voluntarily, according to them, according to the readings, I voluntarily come back every so often. I mean, come back to assist, help, whatever, with spiritual energy and evolution. Now that could be a whole crock, and if all of
Mm.
that is not real, it doesn't matter, because I live my life as me. This is Bill McDonald. Here I am.
Yeah,
Who am I this lifetime? I've been to the war, married, I got kids.
yeah.
So I concentrate on focusing on what I can do now to assist and aid and help others on their evolutionary journey. And it is an evolutionary journey. When I watch quote unquote New Agers get mesmerized with everything from mushrooms and all these drugs and artificial things, because they think that's the way to God. And it's a sidetrack, it's a detour. But it seems to be something that people on the evolutionary path seem to want to go through, and seems to be part of the progression till they get past that, and then they go, oh, I don't need it. Maybe that's what it takes. So I don't beat people up for it. I'm just saying it's really a detour. And if you're meditating so you can learn how to talk to ghosts, or you can
Mm.
channel, then you're wasting a lot of time and energy. It's not about any of that. It's about seeking time in your life, at moments in your life, to just purely love God. Even in meditation becomes something that you got to be careful with, because people meditate and they focus and concentrate on all the techniques. You're doing the Hong Sa, or you're doing Kriya Yoga, or you're doing, whatever, the Om technique, or all these other techniques. And they're so focused on the breathing, they're so focused on everything. And they get done, they think that's it, and they walk away. And I'm saying, no, no, no. That just prepared you for the real journey. It's after you do that, where you're not thinking about anything anymore. You're just loving God.
Mm.
I'm here, God. I
Mm.
love you. And if God loves you back, it doesn't make any difference. So it's a real different point of view. So
Yeah,
my point of view is purpose. You're here for one divine purpose, love and serve, which is maybe two purposes, but it's the same thing. So you're here to love and serve. And it doesn't matter how you serve. You doing podcasts, giving a message out there. That's a service. If somebody got that message, my
Mm.
message or somebody's message that you've interviewed may hit somebody in the right way that makes them curious, makes them stop a suicide, gets them out of depression. You don't
Mm.
know what information you're giving out there, what it does
Mm.
for others. So in a way, you're serving as, hey, here's a menu of things, to help improve your life. Pick and choose what you want. You're the waiter. Here's the menu. I'm going to present you all these things, right? I'm going to give you some different tastes, right? Find something. Not everybody's going to follow everybody's teachings.
Mm.
Shouldn't. I mean,
Mm.
what I teach, and I guess I do teach, and mostly by how I live my life, I I don't tell people to do something that I don't do myself.
Mm.
I see a lot of that going on in the world, and I've been in some new age events where there's a panel of all these famous book authors and people that wrote these great books. If I throw names out, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then afterwards, later at an after party, an hour later, I'll have these people come to me crying, needed help. They're giving all this great advice, like they got their own life together, but they don't.
Mm.
They're still depressed. They're
Mm.
still crying.
Mm.
Yet in public, they got all the answers.
Mm. Yeah.
So, but they can only give what they have inside them. So let's go back to this inside outside that I talked about earlier. Everything that you need is truly inside of you. But we spend all our time looking for somebody outside of ourselves. We're looking for that teacher. We're looking for that guru. We're looking for that answer, that book, that movie, that whatever it is, inspiration's coming. Here's where everything has to happen. Now, people are running around there without a roadmap. Teachers and gurus and saints and sages, great roadmaps. Some are great GPSs, tell you where you're at, tell you where you're going. Trust me, nobody's above getting some good advice, right?
Right.
Ultimately, the guru's not going to do it all for you. The teacher's not going to do it all for you. It's like going to the gym. Okay, this guy's in good shape. I'm going to pay this guy. Okay, you're in good shape. I'm going to pay you. You work out for me every day, so I get better. Like, it's like what? So, uh, you got to do the work. And I talked to one guru I especially thought was wise in India because I was talking about divine grace, like, well, how come you're graced with this and that? And he goes, there's no such thing as divine grace. Even divine grace is earned. When you're sorry, you're asking for forgiveness, and you're doing all these things, it's on your own merits that you're given it. It's not just given to you. You've earned it at some point in your life. You've earned it. Everything that happens to you, you own. Everything that happens to me, I own. People say, wait a minute, well, you got cancer. You've had 13, 14 surgeries in the last year and a half. I think that's a true story. I mean, just right now, right? Got over 200 and some stitches in that face. And I got another cancer surgery coming up in September, another month, right?
Yeah.
And I just go, yeah, it's all supposed to happen. It happens. It's okay. Everything happens in my life as it's supposed to. There is no, that's good, that's bad. It's just stuff. People get excited. Oh my God, I won $1 million. Oh, they go crazy. I lost $1 million. Oh my God. I honestly, when I was in combat in Vietnam, I'm getting shot, literally, boom, boom, AK-47 in the chest. I had a chest protector, but I had bullets go, and I'm getting shot down and I crash and everything else. I'm standing on a battlefield, bullets going by me. I'm as calm as I am right now. No difference. Uh, in fact, I get so calm on the battlefield. It's like me on stage. It's kind of like the same thing when I'm on stage giving talks or I was in combat. It's like there's a part of me, this can be hard to explain, but there's a part of me that's outside of me viewing me, like watching me.
Yeah.
It's like I gave a keynote address in Philadelphia in 2019 at the IANS conference, International Association near Death Studies.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
And it was, I don't know, 550 people or so. It was a small, that's a small audience, but it was exciting. It was a good group. I was happy to be there, very happy to be there. And the group goes, well, here's what you want you to talk about, blah, blah, blah. We're bringing you in as keynote speaker. We watch these videos. Here's what we want, right? And I go, no. What do you mean, no? Well, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I don't know. What? You don't know? You're getting ready to go on stage in 5 minutes. What do you mean you don't know what you're going to talk about? I said, I haven't written anything down. I got no cards. I got no rehearsal. I have no clue what I'm going to say. Wait a minute. You're a keynote talker.
You
You
from
got
the hip.
90, you got 90 minutes up there. I go,
Yeah.
okay. I said, I'll just open my mouth, whatever comes out. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, if we'd known this, they had second thoughts about inviting me, right? So I get introduced. So I go up there and I make these people really nervous because I get up on stage. I have this habit. I walk on stage, everybody applauds, the applause die. And I just sit there and I scan the audience. I'm looking at everybody. 30 seconds feels like 2 hours for these people, right? I don't say nothing. Then I just open up my mouth and it comes. And 90 minutes later, I'm done. Honestly, if you asked me 10 minutes after I got off stage what I said, I wouldn't know. I look at the video and I go, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's how's that?" And then I get asked a question, and then and later on I go, "Wow, that's an interesting question. I wonder how I'm going to answer that." That's in my mind. Go, I wonder how I'm going to answer that. I'm watching up here, right? And I go, "Oh, that's good. That's a good answer." I love questions that are off the world because I never know where I'm going myself. So anyway, so the whole thing, where I'm going with this, the whole thing in life is you have to work without a net. Like in the circus, and the trapeze artists and the people walking the tightrope. The good ones trust that they trust God. They trust their skills. They walk across that tape. There's nothing down there. If they fall off that, they're dead. If they thought about that when they got on the rope, they should never be up there.
Yeah.
So when I give talks, it's the same way. I figure one day I'm going to get up there and I'm going to have a dementia old man moment, and I'm going to go, I don't have anything to say. God bless you all. Thank you for coming. I'll walk off the stage. I figure it's time to hang it up, right? But uh, I was introduced in Germany. I went to a yoga studio and there was these German students there. They'd met me in India, and I got invited to a social function, which I thought and it was at a yoga studio, and it was 30 something, and it's 5 minutes to 12 there, and this guy's getting everybody gathered around, sitting them down and everything. I said, "What's going on?" He says, "Oh, well, we're getting ready to start your workshop." I go, "What do you mean my workshop?" He says, "Yeah, you're giving a workshop today." I go, "Well, how long is this workshop?" He goes, 8 hours. I go, "What's it on?" He said, "We don't know. It's your workshop." So I was scheduled for a workshop. I had no idea, right? So I said, "Well, I got one question." So what's that? You got an interpreter for me, right? I was speaking German, right? And I had no trouble filling 8 hours. And here's an interesting story from that, and there are witnesses to this. Um, but the last 90 minutes or so, because I've been going, I'd say something, and the interpreter said something back and forth. And I told the interpreter, stop. I said, I just want you to tell the people now, I'm going around the room, I want them to look at me. I'm going to look at them. I want to read their body language. And, I want to get the essence of what they're saying. I want them to tell me in German why they're here, who they are, where they're at spiritually, just a minute or two. But what do they want me to know about themselves? The guy goes, really? You don't speak German? I said, no, not a word. Other than Volkswagen Wiener Schnitzel. And, that's about it. Right? So she thought I was crazy. We did it. And I went around the room and I watched everybody. I mean, I really watched them. I had no idea word for word what was happening. But when he got done, and I went around the room with the guy that translated. The other people were just kind of doing something, trying to figure out what was weird. And I just told the translator, I said, here's what this person said. This person went around the whole room, skipped one woman. He goes, you speak German? I go, no, I don't speak German. He says, how'd you know all that? I said, I didn't understand a word they said. I just picked up who they were, why they were there. He says, well, why'd you skip this girl? She was like in her 30s. And I said, because I'm not exactly sure what she said, but she's here because she read and heard that I was a healer. And she's got terminal cancer and she'll be dead in 3 months. The guy goes, oh, no, no, no. I said, okay. She'll be dead in 3 months. And I don't want to tell her that. And I don't want her to ask me to heal her because I don't feel that's something I'm supposed to do. 3 months later, she's dead. I didn't feel good about being right, but it was exactly why she was there. So when I did that talk, and I don't know what I said, but I looked around that audience the same way I do every other time. And by looking at the audience, I connect with what that audience needs. So that's when people do a pre-prepared speech. Like they had other keynote speakers at the IANS conference I was at. And I asked a couple of them, I said, you guys got to come hear my talk? And it was, no, we got to go rehearse. I go, rehearse? Yeah, we need to rehearse a couple hours, for our presentations the next day. I'm going, if you're telling a story from the heart, why do you got to rehearse? I mean, and they all had overheads. They all had cards, and they clicked the thing and the thing would change to another slide. And that's great for school, if you teach a subject. And there's a time and a place for that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, I don't want to insult these people because they're good speakers, but that's not me. It's not my style.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, what's so interesting for me is the sort of contrast of you being sort of spiritual, but sort of an outlaw cowboy spiritual guy, and then also like having a very practical approach. The way that you describe your spiritualities with analogies have to do with weightlifting maybe or something. All of those things are, for me, like that resonates with me, because it's a lot of times you see spiritual people or however people have perceived them, they're fitting the image that people put on them, and they're wearing these clothes, and they're you understand what I'm saying?
Now think about this. I have other friends that are in this, and I go to India. I wore Levi's.
Yeah.
I got my cowboy hat, my Indiana Jones hat. I got a vest on. And then I go to an ashram, and you got to wear white. You got to go. I don't fit the mold, and I'm not going to wear the robes of a Jedi or something. I mean, I'm just me. Wherever I'm, and if I'm wearing a suit, a jacket, and my hat, and I'm barefoot on stage, I've done that before because I'm on stage. I just take my shoes off. I'm comfortable walking around barefoot on stage.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? I go, I don't know. I've been doing it for decades. I mean, so it's like, so I don't style myself after anybody. I don't preach like anybody else preaches because I don't preach. What I do is, being Irish and Scottish, I'm a storyteller.
Mm.
And if I have an experience or a story that relates to the message I'm trying to get out, more better. Think about the Bible and all the sacred books. They all have stories. The mustard seed and the Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
They're making a point, right?
Yeah.
So, and people will remember that stories, and they'll remember the lessons of the stories. So I try to tell people, if they watch my videos, they're all stories, but my stories, the difference is my stories is my life.
Yeah.
My stories are my life.
Yeah.
Let me get rid of that. And
you're coming through fine. The other thing I wanted to say is I'm going to put a link down there to some of your other videos down, in the description for people. But this is really important. This is important. I'm hoping that you'll play ball with me on this one, to use the analogy from what we've been talking about. You described to me before how you had made some predictions previous to the pandemic. And that was one of those things where I was blown away and like, man, this is unbelievable. Like, how am I going to? So if you're into it, what I'd like to do is have you sort of, if you've had any visions or predictions about the future, and it can be any geographical region or whatever.
All right, let's talk about the predictions you were that I was telling you about before.
Yeah.
I
But
was on
make sure you fit some future ones in there because we're going to be shutting down again in another.
all right. This was in summer of 2019. At an East European radio show, blog, or something. A guy was doing me right, and he heard, oh yeah, and so this young guy was interviewing me, and he liked all the stuff I was saying up to the point. He says, "Oh, you got any predictions?" And I said, "Okay." I said, just throw this off the top of my head. I said, next year, which is 2020 coming up, right? I said, next year, we're gonna get hit with some kind of plague. What do you mean plague? I said, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Some kind of plague, worldwide plague. It'll kill at least 1 million people in America before it's done. And he's going, what? And I said, it's going to shut down schools. It's going to shut down jobs. It's going to shut down airports. It's going to shut down baseball, football. It's going to shut down life as we know it. And people are going to be staying home for weeks. And that's huge. And I said, and then California is going to have the next several years some of the worst fires in American history. It's going to burn down redwoods. It's going to burn down huge fires. Are going to be worse every year. California will be ablaze. And I said, then there'll be mudslides after that, and then there could be homeless people all over California and the West Coast, Seattle, Portland. There could be homeless people everywhere, and the San Francisco Bay Area are going to price everybody out. So when this great plague comes, people are going to move out of California. They're going to go to Texas. They're going to go to Florida. They're going to go to Arizona. They're going to go to Boise. They're going to go to Iowa. They're getting out of here.
It's good for people with real estate investment
Anyway,
opportunities.
I said California will show a reverse population trend here, which never happened before in the history of California. There'll be more people leaving than coming. People cannot afford to live there. And then I went on and I said, California, in the next 30 years, between drought, fire, and huge earthquake, I said, there's some hard times coming that will bankrupt California. California is the economic machine. Worldwide, if we were a country, we'd be number 6 in the world all by ourselves, behind Germany and all that. But I said, hard times are going to come to California. Factories are going to move. Silicon Valley is going to start moving out. So I gave all these kind of predictions and all that. I said, you're going to see people breaking into stores in daylight, stealing jewelry. I mean, they're going to be bold. They're just going to break the glass on the stuff. And you're going to see riots in all the major cities of the United States. You're going to see police and race riots and anti-police. And I went down this whole list of stuff. And this guy I noticed he turned the recording off. The light went off. And he goes, yeah, well, thank you much. And I said, no, I said, you warmed me up. I said,
no. Hurt his audience or something.
yeah, because he thought it was crazy. I said, no.
Yeah.
Well, I said, the pandemic will not go, it'll go away quietly, but people will jump on it like it's done, but it's not done. And in the next 3 decades, it will come back. This is a dress rehearsal, but it's going to come back with a worse plague, worse and more deadly. And then at that point, he cut me off and he stopped me from talking. But that's what I made in 2019. Since then, we did lose 1 million people. Since then, we've had the race riots, the police riots. The only thing I didn't predict was political stuff. And if you want political stuff, I'm telling you right now, in the future, China is going to be a major enemy. We're not through with China. We're not through with Russia. And we're never going to be through with the terrorists. That's an ongoing thing. Next 1,000 years, we're still going to be fighting terrorists. I'm sorry. But China's the upcoming superpower. And they're going to take what they think belongs to them and get a buffer zone, just like Russia's going to try to get back all the Soviet republics around them. They want to recreate the republic. So now we got some hard times ahead. But we do have a virus or disease coming. And I
unknown caller.
And so I don't want to throw that out, but the good news is this: we survive it all. And the fact that we have this first plague, which obviously now looking back is the the virus that we got now, COVID, what we've learned from treating that and handling it will help us with the next one to make the next big bad one less of a problem. Less. So that's the good news. So, but the future spiritually is we're on the rise. We as a world, as a world people are evolving, even though some parts of the countries, some countries aren't, you know, you see there's still tribal stuff going on, you know, in Afghanistan and places. But overall, things are getting better. That's the good news.
Good news.
And
Yeah.
this new generation, children born in 2000, they will save this world. They really will. It's in their hands, and I'm fully trusting that they're going to turn it over right.
Well,
You're running out of time on this.
yeah, no, that's fantastic. I tried to keep it under the 80 minutes, but I'm really glad that you were frank, and I think that there's no other way for you to be. My podcast is all about, we get to say what we want and we don't discriminate. You know, I'm not into any kind of censorship, and hopefully it'll be an opportunity for people to see a different point of view. I have a lot of religious, viewership, and you've always come across to me as someone who's got a lot of deep and important things to say about the spiritual realities. So I really appreciate you being yourself, but who else would you be?
There you go.